in my opinion, I think the adoption of digital pathology in healthcare is driven by both cost savings and also patient outcomes. So cost savings ultimately will be shown through productivity and better quality, that there will be a return on investment for purchasing and using digital pathology systems. And on the other end, by facilitating sharing of cases so that the right case is seen by the right pathologist with expertise in that area, particularly helping underserved areas, that patient outcomes will be improved through better accuracy and more reproducible diagnoses, with the aided computer-assisted tools that will be available with digital pathology.
Digital pathology in 2014, having watched this over the past 15 years, I think is really at a tipping point in terms of adoption. I think that the market worldwide is expanding due to the need for efficiencies and workflow given changes in healthcare. So I think these enabling technologies will help all of us deliver better care more efficiently. The panel was really exciting. It was very well attended. It was very informal. I had no scheduled questions for the panelists this afternoon. We actually took questions, open questions from the attendees. And the questions were very high level, very thoughtful.
Sometimes pathologists are a little bit frustrated about the real solutions which we get in their hands, especially in the context of clinical pathology. The situation is much better if you go to research or if you go to education solutions. In education, the systems are quite simple and run very well.
I think it provided some clarification for those attending in terms of overcoming barriers in adoption of digital pathology. We were very blessed and fortunate to have 4 panelists this afternoon with probably about 6 decades worth of experience implementing digital pathology solutions in a wide variety of settings. And I think the attendings were able to leverage some of that experience and knowledge going forward in their own institutions and their own practices.
And so where the market is going is that primarily manufacturers, but others, are preparing a pre-market approval study or studies for submission to FDA. And once the device has been shown to be safe and effective, that will very much open up the market in the US. Right now, FDA does not allow primary diagnosis using whole slide scanners, but once the first pre-market approval comes through, there will be many additional scanners and other devices similar that can be shown to be substantially equivalent through what's called a 510K process of demonstrating that substantial equivalency, and that's a much less onerous process. And so once that first PMA comes through, we'll see the American market open up for whole slide imaging.
There is now consensus over a study that should be completed, and if the results are positive, then the FDA would approve digital pathology as a diagnostic technique. So maybe in about 1 year's time that could be in place. In Europe it's a little different. We don't have an FDA, so there is no formal need for any approval before we actually apply this technology in clinical practice. The vendors like to have what we call a CE-IVD mark. That's like a quality mark for machines which are used for in vitro diagnostics. And some of the images algorithms now have such an approval, and that's a good thing because that shows that at least the application of this technology is safe and reproducible.
I think the take-home message from the image analysis stream in this conference is that validation of image analysis platforms is absolutely vital. We still cannot get away from having trained scientists and, more importantly, pathologists providing the ground truth for what biomarker assessments should be and from which we can actually validate the algorithms that we use in the clinical setting.
The value of pattern recognition in digital pathology is to add a new support tool to the diagnostic armoury for pathologists and to remove the obvious bias that we have, which is inherent in image analysis, in selecting out regions of interest and features that we want to characterise and classify. So this supports the pathologist in ensuring that we have robust data.
Digital pathology standardization is very, very important because our specialty pathology is changing a lot in the way that it's becoming more and more automated procedures that we didn't have before. And in order all this automation to happen fluently, the only possibility is doing using standards that are already available.
People talk a lot about standardization in digital pathology, and it's a very valid and very hot topic. And digital pathology, or reviewing the slide, is that last step in the anatomical pathology process. So really, when we talk about standardization, we need to look at the preceding steps in that full process if we want to have true standardization. And that goes right the way through tissue preparation, your tissue staining, your section thickness when you're using microtomes, and all of these impact on the overall finished slide. And then that's the input into your scanner, and that leads to your digital pathology. And looking at a digital environment where sample tracking and labeling and appropriate barcoding are becoming more and more pertinent, in particular when you're working with multi-site organisations where slides are being sent out to people remotely.
So I'm actually really excited about digital pathology moving forward. I think there will be some hurdles to come across before that we get to the final stage and where it just becomes the routine for everything. I think everyone will have to work together to make that happen, but I think that there's a demand from the community, the pathology community, to see that happen. I think we've seen that at the conference this week.
I think digital pathology over the next 5 years is only going to grow, to be honest, both in the research sector and massively in the clinical sector as well. The enthusiasm and the business of this meeting really shows that everyone's keen, and it's going to grow, no doubt.